welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful, ancient antidote for something so many of us struggle with, that inner critic. We're going to look at two fascinating ideas, metta and karuna, and explore how modern science is actually proving their power to completely change our inner world. So let's start with a feeling that might be, well, uncomfortably familiar for a lot of us, the voice of that harsh inner critic. You know the one. A 2019 paper from Clinical Psychology in Europe actually points to this as a core part of depression, this relentless, critical attitude that creates what the authors call a cold, harsh inner world. And we're not just talking about feeling a little down here. No, this is a vicious cycle. It's this world of self-criticism, shame, and feeling totally isolated. This pattern is a huge feature in conditions like depression and social anxiety, and it can make real, warm connections, both with ourselves and with other people, feel pretty much impossible. But what if there was an ancient, time-tested way to fight back against this inner coldness? Well, it turns out there is, and it comes in the form of two incredibly powerful states of mind that you can actually train.
Okay, let's get into the good stuff. The antidote involves these two concepts from Buddhist philosophy. First, you have metta. Think of it as this constant, limitless goodwill for everyone and everything. It's totally unconditional. And then you have karuna, which is the compassion that kicks in as a specific response when you see suffering.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Goodwill and compassion. They sound pretty similar, right? But the distinction between them is actually crucial. And these aren't just some vague, passive feelings. They're part of a really intentional system for training your mind.
See, metta and karuna are actually part of a bigger set, a group of 4 divine abodes, or sublime states of mind. So alongside the wish for others to be happy, which is metta, and free from suffering, which is karuna, you also have joy in other people's happiness, mudita, and this state of mental balance, upekkha. It's like a complete toolkit for cultivating a really positive mind. To really get a handle on metta, think of it as the foundation for everything else. One of the best analogies I've heard is the unconditional love a mother feels for her child. It doesn't depend on the child doing anything special. It's just this constant radiating warmth and goodwill. It's just there. And this analogy really helps nail the difference. I actually saw a comment in a Reddit discussion that just put it perfectly. They said, metta is the field of love you always have for your child, but karuna is the active response when that child falls and scrapes their knee. You see? One is the constant background hum, and the other is that hum springing into action. So where did all this even come from? Well, the origin story is surprisingly relatable, and it gives us a huge clue about what this practice is really for. The story goes that the main teaching on metta was given to a group of monks who were, get this, totally terrified of some spirits in the forest where they were trying to meditate. And what did the Buddha do? He didn't give them a weapon or some kind of magic shield. No, he taught them to change their own hearts. By learning to radiate this unconditional goodwill, they actually transformed a hostile, scary environment into a peaceful one. So from its very beginning, this practice was a direct antidote to fear. So how does this ancient wisdom, this antidote to fear and ill will, hold up in our world today? Let's take a look at how it's being tested and, frankly, validated by modern science. And believe me, researchers are taking this very, very seriously. This 2019 paper is just one example of how psychologists are now weaving practices like metta meditation right into clinical therapy for some pretty serious psychological conditions. And the results? They're really promising. Studies are showing that these metta interventions, as they're called in the biz, directly counteract the negative thought patterns at the very heart of these disorders. They help people deal with shame and anger, foster self-acceptance, and maybe most importantly, they increase feelings of calmness and safety. So the crucial takeaway here is that this isn't just about, thinking positive thoughts. That's not it at all. The research suggests these practices can fundamentally change our internal emotional landscape, the actual texture and quality of our inner world. Okay, but that begs a pretty fair question. How does a seemingly simple wish for well-being actually create real therapeutic change for someone who's trapped in that brutal cycle of self-criticism? How does that work? Well, the process works by systematically replacing that old habit of self-criticism with a new one, self-kindness. This practice generates an internal feeling of warmth and safety that, and I love this phrase from the paper, can feel completely effectively foreign to someone stuck in that harsh inner world. That new feeling of safety then makes space for more positive emotions, which in turn encourages what they call approach behaviors, things like socializing or trying something new, instead of the avoidance and withdrawal that really define conditions like depression and anxiety.
So, after this whole journey, from an ancient forest all the way to a modern clinic, what's the big takeaway? What should we remember?
It really boils down to this simple but incredibly profound difference. Think of Metta like the sun's constant, radiating warmth. It's just always there. Karuna, on the other hand, is like the focus beam of a rescue light, switched on specifically when it finds someone lost in the dark. You really do need both.
Ultimately, the sources we've looked at present these practices as way more than just a tool for personal well-being. They're actually framed as a pragmatic necessity. As the scholar Acharya Buddharakkhita wrote, in a world threatened by all kinds of destructiveness, goodwill is really the only constructive path to peace. It's an ancient idea that feels more relevant right now than ever, doesn't it? And it leaves us with one final question. What could we change, both inside ourselves and in the world around us, if we just intentionally cultivated a little more goodwill?